This meeting is now called to order. I'd like to welcome everyone this evening. And for roll call, everyone is present this evening. We'll now take a moment of reflection and respect, please. Thank you. Confirmation of the agenda.
That council adopts the agenda for the meeting of May 18th, 2022 as presented.
Someone to move and someone to second. Deputy Mayor Andrews and Councillor Barber, are there any questions or concerns? Seeing none, all those in favor? And that's carried. Thank you. Are there any declarations of pecuniary interest? Okay, I don't see any hands up. There are no delegations or public meetings this evening. So we'll move into adoption of council and committee minutes to approve.
That council approves the following minutes. Regular virtual meeting of council held on May the 4th, 2022.
Okay, someone to move and someone to second. Councillor Chapman and Councillor Charlton, are there any questions or comments? Seeing none, all those in favor? And that's carried. Minutes to receive.
That council receives the following minutes. Meeting of the Elgin County Council held on April the 26th, 2022.
Okay, someone to move and someone to second. Councillor Oslach and Councillor Chapman, are there any questions or comments? Seeing none, all those in favor? And that's carried. We'll now move into the consent agenda, items 7.1 to 7.4.
That item 7.1 to 7.4 of the May 18th, 2022 consent agenda be received for information with actions to be taken as noted.
Okay, someone to move and someone to second. Councillor Ham and Councillor Charlton, are there any questions or comments about the consent agenda? Councillor Oslach, go ahead.
Yes, Your Worship. I would like to comment on 7.1. I would like to thank the VON personally for all the hard work they've been doing in Elgin, Middlesex. They helped me a lot, basically.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Oslach. Are there any further comments about the consent agenda? Okay, I don't see any hands up. All those in favor? And that's carried. Thank you. We'll move into action items. The first report is Clerk 2122.
That report, Clerk 2122, entitled Bill 27, Disconnecting from Work Policy Review, be received for information, and that council approves the HR policy respecting disconnecting from work as required by Bill 27, Working for Workers Act 2021.
Okay, someone to move and someone to second. Deputy Mayor Andrews and Councillor Chapman. And I'll turn this over to you, Josh. Maybe you'll give us a bit more information.
Certainly. Thanks, Your Worship, and two members of council. Bill 27, the Working for Workers Act, was passed in early December of 2021. And what it states is that employers who employ more than 25 people on January 1st of any year must have a written policy in place for all employees with respect to disconnecting from work. So, you know, as council is aware, the town has more than 25 employees. We are required to produce a policy of this nature. So throughout the policy development, staff canvassed sort of other similar policies from comparable municipalities. We reviewed some of the policy work that was done in the County of Elgin, County of Oxford, and a handful of other municipalities, and sort of selected the parts that you know made the most sense for our organization. Just a few high-level points within the policy. So again, to comply with the mandatory Bill 27, the policy of an employer must apply to all employees of the municipality who are covered by the Employment Standards Act. It must be with respect to disconnecting from work as defined. And I will define that. This was provided to us by the province, and it's not engaging in work-related communications, including emails, telephone calls, video calls, or the sending or reviewing of other messages so as to be free from performing work. And that's outside of the normal workday, which is also defined within the policy. Just moving forward here, I did want to note that, again, the policy is prepared based on the legislative requirements of that Bill 27. and other, municipal templates that have been used. And, throughout discussions at the town senior leadership table, we're of the opinion that the impacts of this prospective policy really don't have a substantial impact on the operations of any town department. As a general rule, I think that, staff and specifically management and council have always been very diligent about respecting, employees' time away from work and understanding that, there's no reasonable expectation for those after hours responses. So again, we're doing this to satisfy our legislative obligations, and the policy before us this evening is based on templates used at other municipalities. And with that, happy to take any questions.
Okay, thank you, Josh. Councillor Barber, go ahead. You're on mute, Councillor Barber.
My apologies. To Josh, if I may, Your Worship, could you clarify to the people of Elmer that essential services will not be affected by this particular legislation, and that those people that need to be contacted in off hours, that avenue is still there?
Go ahead, Josh.
Certainly, through you, Madam Mayor, and to Councillor Barber, yes, that's certainly the case. There's obviously, this policy has no impact on essential services, on call and in emergency situations. It's still acknowledged within the policy that staff are on standby. Specifically, I would point out section 7.2 within the exceptions section of the policy that notes some employees are required to participate in an on-call / standby rotation in accordance with their job description and/or employment agreement. For the purpose of this policy, an employee being compensated to be on standby or on call does not have the right to disconnect from work related to the reasons for being on call. So communication unrelated to being on call may be addressed during the normal working hours. So in other words, for instance, Chief McCone is a staff member that does have significant obligations to the corporation outside of regular working hours in emergency situation. So for emergency situations, the policy wouldn't apply to him. Whereas if there was a routine email that didn't have to do with that specific obligation of his position, he wouldn't be expected to reply to that outside of working hours. But in an emergency situation, he would be.
Thank you.
Are there any further questions? Councillor Oslach, go ahead.
Your Worship, to Josh, can you explain further the role of council members under this policy?
Go ahead, Josh.
Certainly. So we did focus on the role of council members within the policy. We specifically cited the town policy section, policy 2.19, and that's respecting the council municipal staff relationship, and understanding that council members may make inquiries to department heads and the CAO directly, and also acknowledging that with council members being part-time, they may need to prearrange time to discuss matters with town staff outside of staff's working hours, in which case they would be able to sort of flex their time to accommodate members of council's schedule. And also, sending emails outside of normal working hours. It's understood that, everybody that staff and council provide services to don't work a normal 9-to-5 workday necessarily. So in many cases, it is essential to communicate with staff outside of working hours. And that's certainly not excluded by this policy. It's just sort of setting the parameters that, for somebody sending an email to a staff member at 9 or 10 p.m. in the evening, you may not receive a response until 8 a.m. the next day when staff are back in office working their regular business hours. So, Councillor Oslach, this should not impact councillors directly as it relates to accessing staff.
Yes. Further to Josh, I get calls 7 days a week from citizens complaining about this, or never complaining that we're doing a good job. I always have complaints. Basically, councilors are on 7 days a week, basically 24 hours a day.
Okay, are there any further comments or questions? Seeing none, all those in favor? And that's carried. Thank you. The next report is Clerk 2222.
That report, Clerk 2222, entitled Site Readiness Grant Funding, be received for information, and that council authorize the Chief Administrative Officer to enter into agreements required to access Site Readiness Program funds.
Okay, someone to move and someone to second. Councillor Charlton and Councillor Ham. And I'll turn this back over to you, Josh, if you want to give us a bit more information.
Certainly, through you, Your Worship, and two members of council, this is really a good news story. Council has been successful in securing two grants for up to $25,000 each towards site preparation works at two industrial sites within the town of Aylmer. So specifically, we're referring to the new employment lands, the industrial lands that council purchased later last year, and also the some space that was opened up in the former industrial park as a result of the Highway 3 bypass provision being lifted. So the town made applications through the Invest Ontario Site Readiness Grant Program, and these applications, the award of these grant funds means that the town can claim 50% of costs up to $25,000 towards site preparation upon each of the sites. So there's a predetermined list of eligible costs. So in the case of the newly purchased industrial lands, this will help to offset some of the costs experienced in terms of the initial environmental assessment works that are underway, so the archaeological geotechnical surveys. And as council is aware, RJ Burnsides and Associates have been engaged for that specific project, and we will be able to recover $25,000 of those costs. So in short, as a result of this grant funding, council has now is able to access $50,000 for both industrial parks to help expedite those sites for future development.
Okay, thank you, Josh. Are there any questions for Josh? Councillor Barber, go ahead.
Thank you, Your Worship. To Josh and to Andy, the town has been very successful over the last period of time, especially in having projects that are shovel ready. And it allows us to gain funding that we normally wouldn't be able to procure. And having two more projects on the go is just good planning. And we thank you for that.
Thank you, Councillor Barber. Are there any further comments or questions? Seeing none, all those in favor? And that's carried. Thank you. The next report is Clerk 2322.
That report, Clerk 2322, entitled 2022 Municipal Election Establishment of Joint Compliance Audit Committee, be received for information, and that council considers giving 3 readings to the bylaw establishing an election joint compliance audit committee for the 2022 municipal election in accordance with the Municipal Elections Act 1996 as amended.
Okay, someone to move and someone to second. Councillor Oslach and Deputy Mayor Andrews. Josh, I know it's fairly self-explanatory, but is there anything you'd like to add to this report?
Through you, Mayor French, and two members of council, this is a statutory obligation of each Ontario municipality leading up to the municipal elections. Historically, member municipalities within Elgin County have established an Elgin Election Joint Compliance Audit Committee, and specifically this satisfies sections 88.33, 88.34, 88.35, and 88.36 of the Municipal Elections Act. Very little has changed in legislation from the previous election. So there's really nothing new. And I guess just to summarize, the joint committee offers some efficiencies in terms of, committee member recruitment, a joint review of the committee terms of reference, fulfilling our notice obligations, and this is also compliant with the relevant provisions of the Municipal Elections Act.
Okay, thank you, Josh. Are there any questions for Josh? Seeing none, all those in favor? And that's carried. The next report is CAO 3422.
That report, CAO 3422, entitled Request for Proposal Engineering Services, be received as information, and that council directs staff to proceed to finalize and issue the request for proposal for consulting engineer services.
Okay, someone to move and someone to second. Councillor Charlton and Councillor Barber. And I'll turn this over to you, Andy.
Thanks, Mayor French. This report seeks council approval to proceed to market for engineering consulting services. These services would be for engineer review of site plans, subdivision application, plans of condominium, with the potential for capital projects estimated to be under $250,000 in total, also included. The town has historically worked with one vendor for these services, and although we have no concerns, this issue really is advanced because of the need to go to the market and have fair and transparent procurement processes. As you know, that's an important aspect to maintaining overall trust and accountability in what we do here at the town. It's not uncommon for councils to increase discretionary spending to allow managers to procure services under a certain dollar amount. So a lot of areas do just give managers greater discretion to make these purchases. That's not an option we're recommending at this time because staff would like to go out to the market to see what's available. And we're recommending a prolonged posting period until October, as engineer firms are really quite busy right now. So we want to ensure that we get a good kind of survey of what's out there in the market. And with that, I'll try to answer any questions you might have.
Thank you, Andy. Are there any questions or comments concerning this report? Seeing none, all those in favor? And that's carried. The next report is CAO 3522.
That report, CAO 3522, entitled Provision of Legal Services, be received as information, and that council directs staff to present a further report to the 2022 to 26 term of council respecting the provision of legal services, and that council approves an exemption to the town's procurement policy to allow staff to engage Learners LLP for legal advice for a period of 1 year.
Okay, someone to move and someone to second. Deputy Mayor Andrews and Councillor Oslach. And I'll turn it back over to you, Andy.
Thank you, Mayor French. This report is very similar to the last one. Legal services has historically been awarded to one vendor. The report outlines our processes going forward that will lead to an RFP. Staff have been trying different approaches to legal services over the last year. Without generalizing, I believe staff are considering legal services more as one tool amongst many in our toolbox. This kind of allows more room for us to address issues with collaboration, reviewing approaches utilized elsewhere, and relying on existing templates. Within this, we're still identifying areas of higher risk and requiring legal advice for those to ensure that we're getting a good opinion on them. But overall, we're not going to legal as much as we previously were. Staff would like to take another year really to develop the RFP and to also get a final cost from 2022 to get a better understanding of the efficiencies that the town's realized through our new processes. And with that, I'll try to answer any questions council might have.
Okay, thank you, Andy. Are there any questions for Andy? Seeing none, all those in favor? And that's carried. The next report is CAO 3622.
That report, CAO 3622, entitled Water Tower Replacement, be received for information, and that council authorized the Chief Administrative Officer to enter into a transfer payment agreement for ISIP Green Infrastructure Funding 2021 grants in the amount of $3,666,133.35.
Okay, someone to move and someone to second. Councillor Chapman and Councillor Charlton. And I'll turn this over to you, Andy, and this is a good news report.
Yes, thank you, Mayor French. This is a huge win for our community. I know, Mayor French, when you sent me notice of this $3.6 million grant award, I got up out of my chair and I did the cabbage patch into the Running Man. So I was pretty excited. I obviously want to thank the mayor for all your efforts in getting the word out to the ministers and the ministry on this project. I also want to thank council as a whole for all the work you've done for the community and for your progressive vision. I really believe that council's support of this project and the commitment to proceed regardless of grant funding were the deciding factors in our award. The staff involved in this project also really rose to the occasion. To provide context, we received notice of this grant opportunity in mid-July of last year and had between 6 and 7 weeks to pull together this application. And it was a very high quality application. The project team of Chelsea, Rob, Josh, Heather, and Owen did a great job adjusting their priorities to really focus on this immediately. The water tower is obviously a critical component for the planning of Aylmer over the next 50 years. One aspect that is really great about this project is there's no bad news here. This project was already built into the town's water and wastewater study done last fall without any consideration of grants. So staff are going to wait till next term when we get some detailed cost estimates on the project. But at this time, we're very comfortable in relaying to council that we do not anticipate any impact to users beyond the moderate impact increases that were adopted previously. Our expectation is really that the town will continue to maintain a significant competitive advantage in terms of our low water cost for the duration. So again, I want to thank council for bringing what has to be the largest single grant award that Aylmer has seen over the last decade, and for establishing a dynamic vision of the future of Aylmer. And with that, myself and the project team will try our best to answer any questions you might have.
Thank you, Andy. Are there any comments from council? Go ahead, Councillor Charlton.
Through you, Your Worship. Just a bit of history. I've never known any other water supply for Aylmer other than standpipe. Has it ever been replaced, and how many times has it been refurbished?
Who would like to answer Councillor Charlton's inquiry? Rob?
Certainly, I can't give you specific dates. I know it has been refurbished once, repainted. It was done at the same time as 2 other towers in the area were done with a similar contractor, but I would have to look up specifics on the dates, Councillor Charlton.
Okay, thank you.
Are there any other comments or questions or concerns? Councillor Oslach, go ahead.
Yes, Your Worship. I think the date was when we went from wells to the water tower, and I think that was back in the 60s. I think that in the 60s or the 70s when we went to the Elgin and Middlesex water supply. I believe Pete can answer that basically. Maybe Pete? Councillor Barber?
Go ahead, Councillor Barber, if you have an answer for Councillor Oslach's question.
Thank you, Your Worship. I don't have that 1960s information, but I believe 1 or 2 council terms ago that there was some refurbishment done of the existing tower.
Well, then I think what we'll do is Rob will get back to you, Councillor Charlton, because we don't want to make too many guesses because we may not be giving you very accurate information. So we'll wait for Rob to look into that, and so we get the accurate information. Are there any further questions or comments? Seeing none, all those in favor? And that's carried. Thank you. The next report is CAO 3722.
That report, CAO 3722, entitled Development Agreement 516 John Street North, Elgin Innovation Center, be received for information, and that council directs staff to present the bylaw for adoption of a development agreement with 424-8732 Incorporated.
Okay, someone to move and someone to second. Councillor Ham, and seconded by Deputy Mayor Andrews. And I'll turn this over to you, Andy.
Thank you, Mayor French. Staff are glad to support the proposed site plan amendment for the Elgin Innovation Center. This amendment will allow for additional parking and loading docks on site. I should note that this location is getting rather built out, so we do foresee challenges if they want to add additional buildings to this site in the future. This isn't to say such things aren't possible, but costs can become quite prohibitive around managing rainwater on site. Staff are also happy to support farmers market in this location. These former Imperial Tobacco buildings have a lot of historic charm that lends themselves to an exciting indoor market. Staff's primary concerns around this were parking, but that will be improved through the site plan approval before you tonight. There are numerous requirements around hand washing stations and washrooms that have been relayed by the health unit. So we're working with this market operator in the hopes that they plan for a market that will grow and serve the community for many years in that location. As the zoning in this area is industrial, staff are recommending that during our required zoning bylaw update prior to next summer, the town include a site-specific allowance for this location. The town doesn't see this as a land use that will create conflict at this location, and we feel the market is a better use for serving the community than previously what was there, which was boat and car storage essentially. And with that, I'll try to answer any questions that council might have.
Okay, thank you, Andy. Are there any questions for Andy? Seeing none, all those in favor? And that's carried. Thank you. New business and matters of urgency. Don't see any hands up for that. So we'll move into reading of bylaws and proceedings thereon, and it's 3 readings.
That council approves and gives 3 readings to the bylaw 1622, being a bylaw to authorize the signing of a purchase agreement between the corporation of the town of Aylmer and Dufferin Construction Company, and the bylaw 1722, being a bylaw to establish an election joint compliance audit committee for the 2022 municipal election in accordance with the Municipal Elections Act 1996 as amended.
Okay, someone to move and someone to second, please. Councillor Chapman and Councillor Charlton. Are there any questions or comments? Seeing none, all those in favor? And that's carried. Thank you. Are there any inquiries by members? Okay, I don't see. Oh, Councillor Barber.
Thank you, Worship. To Rob, if I may, can we have an update on the parking and the traffic control for the school areas at Davenport and McGregor, please?
Certainly through you, Mayor French, to Councillor Barber. From the operation side of things, the line painting is ready to go as soon as we start our line painting this summer. We've got the distances established based on the criteria. I think as staff have the signs ready to go. And maybe I'll throw it over to Josh for the status of the bylaw.
Certainly, yeah, through you, Mayor French, and to Councillor Barber. Following the previous council direction, staff communicated that information to the Thames Valley District School Board and the staff at that school. At this point, we are awaiting their confirmation, and we are looking for their feedback as well before proceeding with a recommended bylaw amendment to council. So we are, as Rob had mentioned, we're ready to proceed as far as signage and amending the bylaw goes. We are awaiting formal confirmation from the school or the school board, and after actually just recently there was another follow-up inquiry that was made. So we're hopeful that we'll hear back very soon, and there should be a bylaw forthcoming for council consideration.
Go ahead, Rob.
Sorry, Josh just reminded me, the reason we're consulting with the school is a blanket no parking. I think our road networks have to be smarter. I don't want to see somebody get a ticket on a Saturday for absolutely no reason at all. So when we come back with the bylaw, it will be both time of day and time of week. And I think that's the best thing for the residents and the school. So that's why it's taken a little bit of time. Monday through Friday, either 8:30 to 3:30 or through Josh's consultation with the school.
Okay, thank you, Rob. Councillor Barber, go ahead.
A follow-up to Rob's most recent comment. Does that mean that the rest of the school parking restrictions will be for the school period rather than Monday to Friday? Presently, there's no parking on some streets Monday to Friday. Would that be relating to just the school days?
Through you, Mayor French, if I understand the question, I was just at the Davenport location on Rutherford is the one I was specifically referring to.
All right, well, we'll have to talk about the other areas then to be consistent.
Okay.
Okay, thank you.
Are there any further inquiries? Go ahead, Councillor Oslach.
To your worship, to Rob again, any updates on the study of Talbot and John, the traffic lights? I brought notice of motion last fall, I think.
Yes, through your worship to Councillor Oshlag, we've done one intersection count there. And I think they're looking to set up the second count sometime in June when the schools are still in. We kind of paused it to get a representative traffic, and I think we're doing another count midsummer. The idea is to get the peak 8 hours and have that light functioning based on those crunch times. So we're doing a set of 3 reviews out there to make sure we capture it. Likely see something back in September.
Thank you, Rob.
Are there any further inquiries from council? Okay, I think that's everything then. So we'll move into statements and committee reports. I don't see any hands up for that. Report of the mayor. So I've been able to get out. It's kind of nice. I can actually give a bit of a report since we're out and about again. So I attended a fundraiser, MCS fundraiser in Mount Salem on May the 7th. And I also attended a Truth and Reconciliation event at the Legion, and it was sponsored by the Catfish Creek Conservation Authority. And that was on May 12th. And I just want to mention to council that I've had the pleasure, we've got some new businesses in town, as you know. And so I've been out visiting and welcoming some of our new business owners. And I've been out talking to our other business owners too, now that we can actually get out and talk to people. So it's been really great getting out and connecting again with our business people and just in general, just connecting with everyone. So notice of motion. I don't believe there is one. And so we have a resolution, meeting closed to the public.
That council moves into a meeting closed to the public at 7:32 p.m. to discuss the following matter. Item 15.1, Chief Administrative Officer Report CAO 3822, respecting litigation or potential litigation relating to taxation matters. And this report is closed to the public pursuant to Section 239(2)(e) of the Municipal Act, as the matter pertains to litigation or potential litigation, including matters before administrative tribunals affecting the municipality or local board.
Okay, thank you, Josh. Someone to move and someone to second. Councillor Charlton and Councillor Chapman, are there any questions or comments? Seeing none, all those in favor? And that's carried. Thank you.